Hey, y'all, it's a state of emergency and a family member has to join the show to talk about it. Social justice leader and movement strategist Tamika D. Mallory is checking in on the Morning Hustle. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank y'all so much for having me.
First and foremost, we love you. We appreciate you. We applaud you for everything that you do, the work that you put in. Lore'l and I were just talking about, we got a chance to watch you on the Red Table Talk. And such an amazing episode about the invisible Black woman.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about it is when I saw it, I knew immediately what this was about. But so many people think, how could Tamika D. Mallory of all people feel invisible? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, no, you know what? That was a great episode. All the women that Jada and Gammy and Willow brought together for that show had stories that really explain what feeling invisible means for Black women. It's not that they are not successful. You had a woman on the show who's actually a doctor, right? But in a moment that she is on a plane and a patient and a passenger needs assistance, the flight attendant has a very difficult time believing that she's actually a physician that could help. And so that's the kind of thing that makes us feel invisible. We have all of the credentials. We run everything. We are the backbone and foundation to so much, but we're always having to explain ourselves. We're always having to prove ourselves. We're always having to just deal with so much stress and tension, just trying to exist. And I saw yesterday, Dwayne Martin, because Jada talks about the fact that when she was getting ready for the interview for the show that day, she was talking to Dwayne and he asked her, what you doing today? What's going to be on the show? And he said, she told him, we talking about the invisible Black woman. And he said to her, I think about how much women go through and how the world takes all the good parts and then throws everything else out. And it's so true. Excuse me. And it's so true because, I often feel like I feel the same way. Like, he mentions in a post that he now has put up to show what happened that day on Red Table Talk. And he says, Black women go through so much trying to get good service. Like that's a problem for us. And it's so true. I don't know if you all experience it, but just going into a restaurant or, going into a store, just trying to operate on a day-to-day basis, you deal with so many hurdles and have to fight so many different battles in order to just be seen. And so I think people believe that because I have a big mouth, Angie, and I talk a lot all the time, that, it means that I'm seen everywhere. But being seen, I think, is more than just people hearing you. It's really people respecting what it is that you're saying.
And I love that y'all gave the advice on like the medical side of things, because there's been plenty of times where I may have had an issue and I felt like I was just kind of brushed away. Like, oh, here's a Z-Pack, you'll be okay. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And it's like, well, what are you talking about? Exactly. I have so many symptoms where I feel like this is not just right. This is not helping me. And I remember one time even I had to go to the hospital. And I'm telling them like I really don't feel right. And I end up passing out on the ground. And they were like, well, it's okay. Just bring her a wheelchair and just put her there in the hallway. Mm-hmm. And one thing that y'all did mention on there that I really appreciated was the fact that she said, you can just walk out. You know what I mean? Some people,
that was powerful.
Yeah, that's something that I don't think we really think about. We sometimes think like, okay, well, this is what they're saying it is, so this is the end of it, and that's not always true, especially when it comes to us.
Absolutely. That was so powerful when she said you can just get up and walk out. I was like, oh, that's what we got to do. Just get up and say, no more. I'm not dealing with it. Mm-hmm. That was just, it's funny because you heard that and that it resonated with you, because when she said it, it just kind of slapped me in my face. Like, wow, I don't have to just accept bad anything.
That's right.
But then what happens is that even your own friends and family and people around you start saying, oh my God, you're difficult. That's just what we go through.
So, I love to say that about us. We're always difficult.
We're difficult. So like me, I'm a person that I look at all my dishes. When someone, when I'm eating out, I look at everything. I look at the glass, I look at the forks, I look at the plates, I look at everything. I catch food that may have a little hair, things that other people don't necessarily concern themselves with. So it becomes such of an issue because they bring you oftentimes things that are not fully clean. That's right. And so I'm always like, hey, this glass, this, that. And I have been around, especially men, who look at me and say, yeah, God, you're so difficult. And I'm like, but why do you want me to drink the last person's food or eat off of a fork that the last person? And then sometimes I find myself shrinking because, of course, if I'm on a date or if I'm in different situations, I don't want to be seen as being difficult. So I'm trying not to say anything. And that's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, and it causes in us, I think, a level of, it's like a pent up tension that you have with yourself because in order to please others, because that's what we do, we're trying to dim, if you will, the light that's within us. And I don't think it's being done to us to harm us. I think people are just not conscious of the fact that they are also perpetuating this thing about women and Black women in particular, that we're just too hard to work with. I heard someone say the other day, if you're looking for a husband, don't be so difficult, don't be so challenging. And I'm like, what exactly does that mean?
Yeah, we're talking to our social justice warrior, Tamika D. Mallory. You're also quite the strategist, and you've got this book, State of Emergency, out right now. And I think a very important chapter that I think a lot of people need to read is the chapter about allies and accomplices. Because so many people, I think, want to know, how do I help? How do I support? We saw that with Portia Williams and how like she was able to kind of get with you, because so many people have been watching all these stories, Breonna Taylor, young Micaiah, like you're seeing all this, you want to get involved, but you don't always know how to start and where to start. And you really kind of give like, here, if you want to get down with the cause, if you want to be part of change, here's how you do it. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Well, the first thing that I hope jumps off the pages is that I am saying to people, you really need to do some self-examination before going to or feeling like you should show up at the front line of any movement. Oftentimes people jump in, they rush to the movement and haven't dealt with the biases that's in their own lives, their own families. They haven't dealt with the fact that there's anti-Blackness in so many different groups, whether that be the relationship between Africans and African Americans, whether that means the relationship between Latinos and African Americans. And of course, when we think about the relationship between white people and Black folks, and particularly white women, and who are definitely more sensitive to our cause, right? White women are like feeling it, seeing it, and a lot of them are coming to the table to say, hey, I want to be a part of the work. But they haven't dealt with the fact that their own mother, father, aunts, husbands, and have biases and perpetuate negativity and discrimination and abuse against Black folks all the time. So in the book, I'm talking about going from being an ally, which is somebody who can turn off the movement. An ally, allies are good. We want allies, but those are people who show up, and most times when it's convenient and or just in moments of passion, but they're able to go back to the dinner, the Thanksgiving dinner in their family home, where their mom might be disrespectful to Mexican people or still look down upon Black folks, and kind of feel like, well, I don't want to get into a debate with my family about this, so I'll do my activism, but I won't say anything or speak up at this table. Those are allies. We're talking about accomplices. We're talking about people who are prepared to sacrifice that Thanksgiving dinner, even if it is with their own mother, in order to really be about change and to be on the right side of history. And so in this book, I'm really digging deep into this idea that the inside out is the first place that you should start. And before running, to a march and a protest. And of course, you can go to marches and protests, but sometimes they go from being at a march to the next thing you know, they call themselves leading marches. And the behavior, I'm just thinking of one example would be during the Women's March while we were organizing. We had some white women who were really down, like they were down for the cause. They really wanted to do what was right, and they wanted to show where they stand on a number of issues. But then while they were planning their marches, they were like working with the police and trying to, give the police basically so much power and representation in the number. And we had to explain to them that what will happen here is that Black folks will be harmed, that white women will be able to go home most times, unscathed. And if there is tension, the police that you're calling in to be a part of this march are going to end up, is just the nature of how it works, being in some type of contentious relationship with the protesters. And they really didn't understand that. And that's why the work has to be done before you even think that you're leading something. You have to actually lead the issues that may be within you. And so that's a lot of what I talk about in the state of emergency.
Well, let's talk about leading marches, because you have done that, but there has been controversy with Black Lives Matter, right? Mm-hmm. Now, I know one of the women, they were trying to bring up her finances and things of that nature, and she's allegedly one of the leaders of Black Lives Matter. Is there any truth to the fact that they're saying Black Lives Matter has a whole white man behind it, and it's like a pulling a strings kind of situation, or is this something we should be behind or not? Because we trust you.
It's really, really sad, the narratives that are out there, and I see people sharing it that are actually respected, and it's so unfortunate. I don't work within Black Lives Matter. I've never been employed by Black Lives Matter. I'm obviously not one of the co-founders. My organization is called Until Freedom. So it's two completely separate organizations. And I'm only saying that because it's important for us to have context and for folks to realize that I'm not making the next statement because I have some type of interest, because I have none at all. Mm-hmm. But the truth is the truth. I've been associated with, and of course, have a great friendship with leaders within the Black Lives Matter community. And of course, Patrisse Cullors is the woman that you're speaking of. She and I are friends. She's a dear sister. And unless there is some strange thing happening behind somewhere or behind door number 3, there's no white man that is in charge at Black Lives Matter, period. It's not true. Now, if door number 3 swings open and we find this white man, then we'll all be wrong. But I'm 100% sure that there is no white man that is running Black Lives Matter. That's number 1. Number 2, it's so unfortunate that we oftentimes share stories and perpetuate narratives that our oppressor has actually put into the public. Now, let's be clear. Accountability is important. Mm-hmm. There's nothing wrong with people being held accountable. And I think Black Lives Matter, especially in a year where they raised over $90 million, they have to be accountable. They have to be clear about what the plans are for those resources, how they're going to help families, what they're going to do with the money. And of course, there are chapters across the country who have said that they do not feel seen and heard, and they want to receive some support for their work as well. I don't see any issues with that. And I think those are things that's healthy dialogue, and the leadership of BLM has to be at the table to deal with that. Mm. But I have a serious issue with this idea that we are now policing a Black woman being able to use her resources to go out and do what they tell us to do, which is to secure a future for her child. Mm. Now, if you read these stories and you really read it, and the New York Post is one of the most notorious for writing stories that are racist and are biased and really derogatory or defamation against black people and black leaders. And I am one of those who has been a target of the lies that they tell. If you read the story, the headline would have you believing that Patrisse Cullors took money from the $90+ million that they raised or that people gave them, because they didn't go out and raise anything. The money started coming in because people, out of guilt, wanted to figure out where to go to pour resources in. And as far as the world is concerned, everything is Black Lives Matter. So unfortunately, my organization, Until Freedom, we didn't receive anywhere, not even a fraction of that, right? Mm-hmm. So just to be clear, and by the way, as an aside, I don't think $90 million is even enough, because what we're fighting, we're up against people who have billions upon billions of dollars, right? We're fighting major systems here. And so having $90 million, it sounds like a lot to some of us because, we're not in that situation. But I can tell you that if you're really trying to fund a movement that has the type of arsenal, if you will, to fight back against the system, it's nice, but it's not what it will take. So let's just be clear about that. But to go backwards, if you read these articles, they will have you believing that Patrisse went out and took money from the $90+ million and bought 4 homes. Mm-hmm. That's what it sounds like when you read the headlines. Black Lives Matter raises money, leader gets 4 homes. But if you open up the story, because even when they lie, they have to tell a little bit of the truth so that they're not 100%, being sued for total defamation, right? So that's what they do. If you read the stories, you find that from 2016, that's when she purchased her first home. So she's been purchasing homes from 2016 until now. Now, they don't do the work of calling you to ask you of anything before they put these stories out, because most times when they do that, what happens is that they end up finding out that their angle is wrong, really wrong. And then they're in a position where if they put the information out, then, it's like you knew that you were just bold-faced lying.
Right.
Because what they would have found out that I found, because I called her. I'm not going to lie. I asked questions because people were attacking me for her and putting us in the same box. And so I wanted to make sure that when I was speaking, that I knew what I was speaking about. And of course, I want to stand up for another Black sister, because people have had to stand up for me in the past when people, when folks come for me and disparage my name. And so I called her and asked her. She has not received a salary from Black Lives Matter. She's not received the salary from the organization. I think they are now just starting to pay her a salary. But from 2016, she was not receiving a salary. And as you know, the filings are public. So if she was stealing money from the organization, at this point, she would probably be indicted and or in jail. Now, This woman is a speaker. She is an author. She is a professor. She has a content deal where she's doing documentaries. She's doing what we are told, which is 5 or 6 jobs, same as I do, 5 or 6 jobs to make up the income that she has, and decided to put her money into homes rather than going out and purchasing it, blowing it on cars and whatever else. That, for me, I have a problem with that, because what she's doing is really leading by example. Again, the accountability issue, that has to happen. But we cannot be in a situation where people are telling Black women that we don't have the right to secure our future and the future for our children and grandchildren. The ways in which Dr. King and Malcolm X died, not having resources for their families, having their families having to struggle and to depend on other people to support them, that is a model that we are doing away with. We're throwing that in the trash. And in true fashion of Black women and how we operate, we are geniuses in terms of figuring out new ways to operate so that we're able to change the ways in which things have been done in the past and create new forms of success, so that we do not have to die and have no place to be buried and things like that we've seen in the past.
Yeah. social media activist, Tamika D. Mallory. I said social media. Jesus, take the wheel.
I'm like,
It's all right.
IG model.
I know, look, nothing, social justice activist Tamika D. Mallory. We appreciate you so much for being a part of the Morning Hustle. Before we let you go, though, bringing things back to Red Table Talk, you spoke openly about just kind of the pressures of all of this, right? You've been, your growth has been so fast in many ways, even though you've been working for so long, but in terms of the media attention, it has grown and grown and grown. It gets bigger and bigger, and you face a lot of criticism from all sides, from all different types of people.
Sure.
And you spoke on just kind of Xanax, that you actually had an addiction at one point to Xanax, and a lot of that was just trying to get to sleep, trying to get adequate sleep so that you could keep going. I want to speak to you a little bit about personally the toll that all of your work takes on you and how you are currently dealing and healing.
Yeah, well, thank God I'm in a total different place today from where I was 2 years ago. I didn't recognize, and Black women tried to warn me. So let's just be clear about that. The stress and the toll that being around white people every single day as a Black woman would cause me. I did not know until I went through it. And especially in the Women's March, these were white women, many of them who had never been in a movement before. They were just afraid of Trump. They saw an existential threat and they wanted to get involved. And so in many cases, I was working with and dealing with individuals who did not realize how dangerous their behavior is and how painful and traumatizing it can be for women of color and for Black women. And that created in me a situation of, constantly feeling attacked and also feeling like if I tried to defend myself, that could hurt me as well. And so there was a lot that I went through, but I can tell you this much. The experience of everything that led up to me going to rehab, getting myself together, having to go through PTSD work, all of that experience has helped me to be the person I am today, where when people are lying and creating little clips of things I said so they can go out and, try to make people think that I'm the worst person in the world. I see them, they have YouTube channels. They're making all their money during the month off of stories about me. It now has created tough skin where I realize that it's par for the course. And in fact, I now understand this whole concept of, if you don't have haters, then you ain't doing nothing. So if no one is talking about you, then you probably aren't really putting in the work. The fact that I'm a topic of discussion for so many people on a regular basis tells me that I'm doing something. And what I'm now learning through therapy and through, like I said, my PTSD support system and all of that is to focus on the people who are with me. And there are so many who, like you said, when I first came on, it feels good to hear you people, other Black women look at you and say you're appreciated and you're loved. And that for me is what matters. I spent this past weekend with Sabrina Fulton, the mother of Trayvon Martin, at her conference, Circle of Mothers, that has too many mothers, probably 200 women who have lost their children in different ways to violence, to gun violence, to police brutality. And these mothers, many of them who saw and watched, this year as I was, disparaged, if you will, by some mothers who I believe are truly dealing with trauma. But they came to me, many of them just coming up saying, we love you and we need you to keep going. And that's what I have to focus my attention on. So that's pretty much how I'm getting through it. It is a healing process. Once you are addicted, you always have to claim and understand that addiction is real. And so there are times when I feel stressed, but I'm grateful to God that when I'm feeling that stress, the last thing I want to do is go back to the dark place where I was 2 years ago. And I'm just grateful that God got me through it.
How do you let your hair down? Do you have a relationship going on right now, Tamika, like any love interest?
Listen, the relationship piece is it's tough. That's the part that is probably the hardest, because I don't have a lot of time and I ain't got time for no crap. You know, like either when I meet you, we need to be married. Like,
I hear that.
See, I'm really not gonna know. I'm just joking about that. But I'm not, you know, I do want to get married, but I'm just not in a place where I can really have a successful relationship just based upon the pace that I stay at. And guys don't try to talk to me anyway. So that's a whole different topic. But I do, you know, one thing I have done though is that my team, the people I work with, and there's so many folks that are part of this family at Until Freedom that we've created. That family, I lean on them and they lean on me, and we enjoy one another's company. We eat together, we learn together, we cry together, we pray together. And we also party hard together. When we go to cities, whenever we hit a city and we're doing whatever, you know, working for a family or working, protesting or being involved in different issues, we find the local hole in the wall. We're looking for the locals for sure. And we enjoy ourselves like that as well. So, and I just saw a woman in the club the other night, and she was like, you know, I swear you look like Tamika Mallory. And I was like, that's me. And she was like, oh my God, I would never think that you would be here. Yep, actually, I
go to the club. Yeah. Don't pop up with no white boy, and I'm gonna be like, Tamika.
It ain't gonna happen. It won't happen. You know what? People have told me, like, maybe you should date the guys out of your race. And, you know, perhaps one day those things could happen. But in terms of a white man, I can't see myself laying down with a white man every night. And I have no problem with those who do, but it's just not something for me.
I say the same thing. I'm like,
fine black men out here.
Yeah, me and Master can't be laying next to each other.
That's enough. Okay. On that note, Tamika Mallory, the book, plug the book, also your virtual tour, because there's a lot of our markets are going to be seeing you soon. Dallas, Chicago, St. Louis, Philly, my hometown, DC. So let everybody know about your.
There are so many. First of all, we started out the gate with Taraji P. Henson, Charlemagne the God. So many. Andra Day has been on the tour. Van Jones has been with us. My movement family, my son, attorney Angelo Pinto, folks from California, you know, young organizers. So many people have already been a part of the tour. And as we move forward, we're going to hear from Michael Eric Dyson, Tiffany Haddish. We had Jeezy and Portia Williams and Ilyasa Shabazz, the daughter of Malcolm X, to be on with us this week. So it's been full and it's going to continue. I have some special guests that I can't announce right now, but others that will be coming up. You can go to TamikaDMallory.com. That's TamikaDMallory.com to get a ticket. And just to be clear, it is virtual, all virtual. Every single stop for this part of the book tour is virtual. It's categorized by city and state in order to provide people for the local bookstores an opportunity to promote their area, rep their sets. But it's virtual. You can purchase a ticket. You get a book with the ticket and be at any one of the events. Some folks have been at all of them, and it's been really rich, the dialogue.
Yeah,
we pulling up, right, Angie? We're gonna pull
pulling up virtually. We got
the podcast too, right? Tamika, the podcast as well.
Yes. So oh my God, let me tell you about my podcast. That's our baby. We love our podcast so much. It's called Street Politicians. It's with my partner, my son Lennon. We had birthday yesterday. Happy birthday to my son. And you know, Street Politicians came about because we were like, again, back to the club scenario. The folks think that all we do is talk about politics all the time, but we don't. We care about other issues. And we wanted to really have a way to show people how all these things connect, because everything is political. Your hair weave is political, you know, with where you live, the street corner, the lights, the every game is political. The strip club is political. Politics exists within every single thing in society. So Street Politicians is on iHeartRadio. It is a podcast on the Black Effect Network, which is Charlemagne's podcast network. And so folks can check us out every single Wednesday. There is an episode on every single platform where podcasts are heard.
Absolutely. Tamika, I will stress it again. We love you. We appreciate you. Keep going. You have our support.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for joining the Morning Hustle. Anything you want to say to the people that are watching, listening, that get it, this is that one time that they really get to hear from you right now.
Pick up the book, State of Emergency. We're already number one in several categories. We want to be number one in all categories. They don't believe that Black people purchase books in the ways in which we can, and so to be number one at this point is a high honor for me, and I appreciate all those who have already supported. If you haven't, get the book. You can also download the audio version, of which I'm narrating 90% of it myself, but there are other really powerful people in it. The foreword is by Angela Davis, Dr. Angela Davis, and Cardi B. It's a conversation with the two of them, and it's something that you want to read. So come for the forward and stay for the book. Thank you.
All right. Tamika D. Mallory on the Show. Thank you so much.
Thanks, ladies.
Beautiful. Have a great day.
You too.
Rest and stay, stay energized. That's right. Stay hydrated.
That's right. Keep the glowing, sis.
We are the Morning Hustle.